Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. There shouldn't really be anybody here yet. Starting a little early by accident, but I think everybody can probably hear me. I'm going to share this on Fabu. Two people, one people, almost nobody. It's not going to be too busy yet. It's early. What's going on, guys? I see a couple people here. Give me a second. Not used to running this from basic stuff. Was my sound check good? Little sound check person? All right, good. All right, people are starting to fill in. That's good. All right. What's up, guys? Dark Lord Sparta, what's up, brother? And Cito. What's up, Cito? I'm doing all right. Let me just... I'm streaming from a hotel, so we're probably going to have some technical difficulties of some kind tonight. But so long as everybody can hear me good, we will do a stream tonight for a little while. I'm not going to be going for as long as usual, but we'll have some fun. What's up, Jerome? It's a little weird. I kind of like this wingback chair. I really need one for my house. I need like Morpheus's chair. Oh, it's Otto, but he's going to be C for tonight. Oh, I see. Otto, but the C is for style. I got you. I like that. It's actually a nice touch. Yeah, Eddie, we're doing this. I can't take calls tonight, though. So it's pretty much just going to be me and the walls and the disembodied wife voice. Say hi, disembodied wife voice.
Disembodied wife voice says, hello, everyone.
I don't know if you guys can hear that, but hopefully you can. Yeah. So tonight, I don't have too many topics in mind. We've mostly just been traveling around. And the nice thing about traveling, we'll just have a little small talk before we start about anything really serious. The nice thing about traveling around is you can kind of get a feel in a spiritual way about things that are different from place to place, you know. So for example, in the place where I live, the town that I live in, the Long Island place that I live in, the spiritual energy is very different, obviously, from where I am now, which is out in the countryside. We're over in Corning, New York, which is a very small city, especially compared to what I'm used to. And I kind of like Watkins Glen out of the two. We kind of did a little exploring today. But I like sometimes, the vast difference between the heavily populated energy and, of course, the countryside. I used to spend every summer at my grandparents' 100-acre property in the Adirondacks, and that was really cool. I really enjoyed that because you could get lost in the woods. It was really nice, and the spiritual energy was very different. I keep feeling like I want to go out into the woods and rip off all my clothes and start calling for Shub-Nagurath or something like that. Reach out to the horned god, all that kind of stuff. I want to aim at that, and it's definitely a different energy. It's an older energy in certain ways, and it's a little bit more primal. Obviously, I mean that's the obvious part. But the whole time I'm driving, like I find I really zen out. Not just zen out. What's the word? I basically trance out when my wife is driving. If she only knew just how much I like being driven around, like when she's driving, to me it is like, I don't know, it's like a baby being put in like a little rocking chair. Like that's how I feel. I go completely into my own little space, and I kind of trance out, and I start seeing things, imagining things. I start trying to like fly up over the car and imagine what it's like down the road a little further. And usually I get it wrong, but every once in a while I feel like I can see down the road even though I can't. And I imagine what it looks like from a bird's eye view. And the best feeling though, or the weirdest feeling, is every once in a while I'll get like in a stretch of road, and I imagine that 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, maybe there was like a Native American village that was in the area, like especially when you find like a spot that looks like maybe it was like I don't know, like a flat spot, right? That you could imagine. It probably was all forested because there wasn't the Northeast of America I think the story goes something like a squirrel could go from Maine to like North Carolina and never touch the ground or something like that. That's how fully wooded it was. It was like the rainforest, but it was like East Coast. And so I imagine all of these natives living in little clearings, like maybe they cleared spaces for their little, not little, some of the villages are really big. But I envision that kind of stuff, especially here near the Finger Lakes, because I would imagine that was probably a pretty happening place, right? So like we'll go near something that looks like a body of water that's been there for a while, and I'll just get this vibe like, I wonder what was here, like, for hundreds, thousands of years ago. I really find that fascinating. And as we're driving around, I can't help but turn to like Lovecraftian style energy, because one thing Lovecraft really got right was that sort of upstate New England feel, that quality of like just how desolate, and how, when we say backward, he meant it in a nasty way, but he meant it kind of like, just ancient, desolate, that kind of thing. It really sucks, this laptop. Just plain old sucks. It's not playing the stream, probably because there we go. So when I play the stream, I should keep the video open so that there we go, that's better. I should be able to actually watch it better. Good. So what I was getting at was it's way more primal, and it's way more primitive, and Lovecraft would have said desolate in a way that was negative for him, but to me it's desolate in a sense that the lack of human civilization means that there's a lot more unknown, and he was terrified of the unknown. He was absolutely terrified of it. So when I'm driving around, I'm like looking at these old farmhouses, some of them very old. In fact, one of the houses we were going to look at in this area that we were thinking about buying was at least as old as my grandparents' house and the 100 acres property. It was about, actually I think the one from my grandparents' place was from the 1600s. This one was from, I believe, the 1800s. So we were going to look at one from like the mid 1800s, and man, did we want this place. Oh man. But it's a little too rich for us. We're still, I don't want to say poverty stricken, because I'm not a failure. I've been doing pretty well with things. But no matter how much you have in savings, they always seem to find a way to make it so it's more than you have, for a down payment plus closing and all that stuff. So it would have taken every penny that we have to make a down payment and initial stuff, with the down payment, the closing costs, the taxes. We're not even touching the taxes yet. The down payment, the closing costs, all that stuff would have been, I guess, every single penny that we had saved, which I guess is a lot for some people these days. True. I've never had money, like, not of my own. Like my family once used to have money a long time ago, like before I was born, but I've never been rich. I've never been comfortable even. I've always been kind of like lower middle class, lower middle class, like qualified for stamps type of lower middle class. And hey, what's up, Eric? What's up, Yepson? Fleshy, my loves, my brothers, my loves. Yes. Needs more cowbell? I know. I really wish, guys, we were going to have Fleshy maybe host it tonight, and I was going to do that, and we were traveling around, and I kind of decided to go live like 20 minutes ago, because I wasn't sure if we were going to go down to the bar. I still might go have some fun. I still might go. The pool's going to be closed by the time. Yeah, it's closed now. The pool's closed. They closed the pools too early. They should be open late. But I'm probably going to hit the gym before I go to bed. So fuck it. I'll hit the gym, which I haven't done in a while. I could really use that. And then, but yeah, so I feel like, as we're passing by these old properties and stuff, I feel like the spiritual energy that would be in them must be really incredible. And I just want to go and just walk around and touch the stones and, see if I can feel anything. Sometimes I can. I'm not saying I feel people, like I don't necessarily get a personality out of it, but I can kind of feel like a presence and a sense, and that kind of stuff. What's up? Thank you, Eden Garden. What's up? Love coming your way from your perv student. Love H. Oh, I think I know. Yeah, what's going on, guys? What's going on? So I'm going to read some of these comments in a minute, so don't worry. Make your comments. I'm going to be taking mostly questions tonight. Hopefully I don't get a lot of negative reacts because of the lack of Fleshy. But in case you guys don't understand, since I'm on the road and Fleshy sort of, was told last minute, I kind of changed my mind last minute, decided to go live anyway, because I wasn't gonna. But he offered to host, and I figured I'd give him some. I figured I'd just take a break tonight. But you know what? I feel kind of lonely. I kind of feel like I want to, And I'm not going to be on for like 4 hours tonight. It's probably just going to be like 2 hours or something, maybe less. We'll see.
Lonely.
What's that?
Lonely.
Lonely. I don't count you. You're like, you're like a shirt. You're like always here. You're always all over me too. But so yeah, we gave Fleshy the night off, and he might not even watch the whole thing. He said he's got stuff to do with his friends. So yeah. Ooh, I like that question, CJ. We'll talk about that for sure. Hopefully somebody will remind me. But I like that question. That's actually a really good question. Some of that stuff I try teaching on my Monday night classes. If you guys can see your way clear to doing that, it is $20 a month on my Patreon. I have a Monday night class where we go over a lot of the basics. But we also go over very advanced stuff. But you know what? I will talk about the basics that I think are important. Probably more important than the ones most people would think, I think, personally. Yupson says, show feet. He says, this stream is missing some flesh. Show feet, actual question, handling the personality of places. I love you, brother. I wish you were here. I wish I could handle a call. Maybe I should have you stream it after all. But no, don't show your foot. I'll show my foot. There you go. I'm wearing shorts too.
Thorne.
Ew, get out of here. I hate feet. Get out of here. Stop it. Ew, get out of here. Great. Now everyone's going to be like, can I get a $5 for that toe, please? But, yeah, so. Let me fill the tank there for a second. All right. Let's hit a couple of these questions. Let's go with the for-profit question first from Fleshy. So he says, handling the personality of places and new energies. So I have a bad problem where whenever I go somewhere, I can't sleep. It takes me a while to get so I can fall asleep in a new place. I always seem to find a reason to stay up longer than I should, and the bed's always uncomfortable. I mean, even if I'm dead tired, I'll lay down and I'll just be like, fuck, now what? And I'll look at the ceiling and stuff, and it's too quiet. I mean, I brought a noise machine, so I should be good with that. I brought like a little speaker, so I should be able to make noise and sleep pretty good, but it's still usually a pain in the butt. The bed's weird. The feeling of magnetic north is weird from what I'm used to. The sheets feel like not just rough and scratchy, but like they feel like paper because they're like those hotel sheets. So it's always very uncomfortable. It always feels like, I'm in the wrong place. Now that's all physical stimulus, but that's not all of it, guys. It's not just that. That is the energy of a place too. The energy of a place can sort of come in through physical mediums. Like one of my recent videos talking about mirror scrying, especially self scrying, and understanding that everything you see is a reflection of something higher, spiritual, etc. So, like even this little dinky bottle of diet soda, that is the material side of a spiritual object, and the spiritual side of there's a spiritual side to a material object, right? So they're really both together. Like people often think of spirit as like an overlay, almost like someone sort of like took like clothes and put it on it, or almost like if you're doing like Photoshop and you have two images and you like make one cross over the other. What you actually really need to realize is it's actually more organic in a way. It's almost like there's another dimension you can't see that's connected to this and literally physically attached to it. Like it's literally like part of it. And you can kind of, if you really think about it, you can kind of like get this weird, I would say, hyperdimensional vibe from things if you let yourself sink into them. I mean, I can't make heads or tails of it most of the time, but I can sort of get the distinct impression that I'm not, feeling everything that there is to feel. Let me adjust this a little bit so I don't accidentally cancel the stream, because I noticed like the top of my ugly head. There we go. That's better. So, you got to get that golden ratio of where you are in the screen, right? That looks a little better. So you can definitely feel something more than just the physical. If you let your senses really play with what you're experiencing, you can absolutely pick up on more. So when you're experiencing something uncomforting in the environment, that can literally be a nod, if you will, to the literal energy. People spend way too much time separating the one from the other, and that is to your detriment spiritually. It's actually negative. It's a negative trait spiritually to separate the physicality from the spiritual too much. You should be, in my opinion, learning to sense both pretty equally. Obviously, we all have a long way to go. Like, I'm not claiming I can see all that, but it is absolutely something that should be strived for. You should strive to, even in a humble little cap, be like, what's the spiritual nature of this thing too? What is that? And I think, our senses deceive us, and we think that what we feel is somehow more solid and real. Now, of course, you could argue it feels more solid, sure. And there is we'll say, I guess like the kinds of beliefs that used to permeate the occult, and probably still do in some deeper ways, is that reality used to be way less dense, and it's become more dense over time, like more physical. So it used to be that all of this was a dream, but now it's a condensed dream. It is literally becoming a solid dream, according to certain metaphysical philosophies. So, neither here nor there. Maybe that's exactly what it is. Maybe not. But we definitely get distracted by our physical senses, and that is absolutely part of the challenge. So I see some people tuning in and then tuning right back out. They see there's no Fleshy. Call in. I can't take a call, but call in. We're losing the love. Come on, everybody, tell your friends. D.H. Thorne's here alone in a hotel room. There might be some hanky-panky. Well, how's it Twilight Zone song? We'll do the Twilight Zone. I'll do my Captain Kirk, my William Shatner version. It's 3 a.m. Something's done.
I'm all alone.
I'm all alone. Yeah, I'm all alone. So I should play it just so I know how to sing it. But yeah.
Gun's still there.
So Camilla, Fleshy says that if I want questions, Fleshy's still doing his job, and he's putting them in the Discord. If you want to do it, you don't have to. I don't need it.
Want me to read them to you?
I can scroll, actually. I got pretty good
I'll read
control.
them to you.
Well, I know which one I want to answer next.
I
So.
can read it to you.
Not right now. I need like a clicker, like you'd use to like signal a cat or something. So I go like, clicky, clicky, where's my next question?
Yeah. No, I'll do that so that you stop talking.
Ew. I know, I probably should have one of those. So for dealing with that new energy, bring stuff from home that reminds you of home. Bring crystals charged with the energy of home would probably work. I don't do it, but I thought about doing it this time very strongly. Bring things that smell like home. Bring your pillow. Probably that would be one of the biggest ones, is bring the pillow. Rub your feet on the carpet, according to my wife. She likes that feeling. I don't.
Better than taking off a bra.
Yeah, she says better than taking off a bra. Not for me. I mean, I get it. Like, I know in Die Hard, in the beginning of this, I think it's the second one actually, when he's talking to, I guess his wife on the phone, or ex-wife on the phone. She's saying, he's like all uncomfortable there, and she's like, well, if you curl your toes into the carpet, especially shag carpet, that'll make you feel more at home and you'll sleep better. Those are all physical things you can do. You can absolutely try to meditate. You can do that too. Yeah, Eddie's saying fists with your toes. I think he's got a point there. I think it goes back to our primate roots that instinctively we feel more secure when we feel something in like the creases of our toes that feel like we've got a grip on something. And I actually read something. It was a meme, but it's plausible, where that's why people, when they orgasm, their toes tighten up, is because that's a reflex from when we were living in trees. And it's like, you're coming so hard, you don't want to fall out the tree, so your little feet grab onto the tree extra hard. I mean, maybe, it sounds like it could be. So, yeah, definitely true. But yeah, so then there's also spiritual energies that you can encounter here that could be, the dearly departed, for example. You could have egregoric energy from people who were once living, who died or loved it here. It doesn't necessarily even have to be where they died. I mean, it's a fairly well-known fact that a person doesn't have to have died in a place for their ghost to inhabit it. They just have to leave enough of an impression there that they can be, either their echo or whatever can be there, whatever you want to call it. Since I see things as egregores rather than, so to me, egregore is soul, spirit, etc. That to me is what it really is. That means even you're an egregore right now. You're in your life. You don't realize it, but you are. And an egregore is a tulpa, or thought form, for lack of a better term. And it's an idea. It's a set of stories and ideas that you are not mistaking, but interpreting to be you, which it is. But it's you, not in the limited sense. You're not limited to your stories. You're actually universal, omniversal consciousness that is peering through this tiny, tiny, tiny little pinhole of a story that you call you. So when that story ends, and it ends all the time because it's always changing, when that story ends, goes through a major transition, consciousness may or may not stick with it. It's had a big enough shift that there's no reason necessarily for consciousness to stay focused on it. But that story continues in the minds of everyone who knew you, and sometimes beyond that, because you have, artifacts that will remind the world of you and all that good stuff. So, your egregor continues on beyond your physicality, and your consciousness can inhabit that memory, just like it does now. So your memory is installed, in other words, the memory of who you were, is installed into the minds of everyone who ever knew you, and then anyone who ever heard the stories of you, and so on. And that becomes your identity rather than just this. So consciousness then uses that as its conceptual vehicle to experience reality through, meaning it now has the ability to see through more than one person, which it always has. But my point is that when you get something really powerful like a deity, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about something that is in egregor, that is known and is alive in the heart and mind for maybe even billions of people in the case of a major religion. So that egregor becomes a deity which is in the heart of many people and has access to all of that. It's an omniscient, basically, as far as humans are concerned. It's not fully omniscient, but it's absolutely, maybe whatever the next step down is, very omniscient. I don't know what the right word would be, but highly cognizant of reality from that mortal plane through the eyes of all of these believers. Whenever you're thinking of a spirit, especially if you're really thinking of it like it's alive, maybe it has access to that, right? So in a hotel or in a home, I would say it's not just limited to what people remember, but what maybe things that we can't even understand remember. That is to say, the footprints you left in the floorboards, for physicality's sake. Some might say the energy cast off you have, the biological cast off, anything that might remember your passing. So the dust mites that ate your skin cells and procreated, they're there because of you and all that. So there could be a residual trace, is what I'm saying, in ways that maybe seem insignificant, but probably aren't in a spiritual sense, right? Why would they be insignificant? They could be, huge, hugely important, especially to, maybe like there's an ant colony alive under your house because you left a hot dog under the stove by accident one time, and they remember that the day that the great giant dropped the hot dog, and that's, I'm being really funny here, but that's kind of, potentially valid. So I'm going on a limb, right? I'm definitely reaching. But the point I'm trying to make is your conscious nature could be remembered, in your environment, as Hermit says, forensic footprint, exactly. You could be remembered in your environment, even if we didn't want to play superstitious games about etheric energies and all that stuff. Even if you are a hardcore skeptical spiritualist, I'm more flexible maybe than a hardcore skeptic, but I'm definitely a skeptical spiritualist in a lot of ways. And so therefore, anything that I cannot judge for myself to be real, things that I can't sense or see or intuitively believe in, so to speak, I'm not saying they're not true. I'm simply saying that I don't have evidence for it, and so therefore I study it, but I go, rather than using that as my basis for belief, because that becomes circular reasoning very quickly, I try to base it on things that I can point to and say, hey, these things for sure could work. These other things, maybe. So I'm not ruling out the idea of the etheric energy, and I can sense auric energy to a point. Maybe not like someone who claims they can see like your full bubble aura rainbow show, but I can definitely see radiance around people, we'll say, and I can feel it. I'm not saying I see it like I can see it through walls or anything. I'm just saying if I stare, I can sort of see that energetic outline, and I think I know why. I talked about that, I think it was a month ago in my video about seeing auras. But independent of that, the things that I can prove are what I like to base my discussions on, rather than talking about things that would be imaginary. Not that the imagination is not important, but you can't admit imagination into evidence for people who are rationally skeptical. So I can't go to a skeptic and say, I imagined that I saw an aura, so therefore I did, because I am a god that creates my reality based upon my perception in a way. And when I say created, I mean I create the reflection. Okay, so just because I'm experiencing a reflection that I'm sort of co-creating with my imagination doesn't mean that that's admissible as evidence to someone who is rooted in a truly objective frame of reference. That person will just think you're crazy. But I also respect and understand that the material world takes imprints from us, and that by and large, most of us would argue that our memories of one another are imprints in our biology. You know, your nervous system receives the signals and your brain interprets them and your brain records them as memories in whatever way it does that. And those memories are the body of the ghost, if you will, in my interpretation of it. This is why you could argue that you may have so many nameless spirits, you know, walk-in type spirits in an environment, because this is the forgotten dead. And if you go back to the Sumerian lore, the Sumerians had a very big belief system built around respecting the dead and respecting the ancestors, because they believed that, you know, people in the afterlife, in the underworld, what is it, Shamash, or whatever, the underworld, maybe that's the name of the god, I don't know. The people living in the underworld, okay, were, if they were not given libations, that would be, you know, offerings, spiritual offerings, you know, like pouring out, like, you know, from my homies type of stuff. Quite literally, in fact, giving them liquid offerings, giving them things like that. But they probably also meant just memory energy, just remembering them and understanding them. Giving them those offerings, you know, energized them and kept them alive and aware and powerful. But if you forgot them and didn't talk to them, right, and you didn't remember them, so then it was said that those spirits living in the underworld were eating dust. Think about that. So here you are in the underworld. If you have family that remembers you and treats you well, you are given a fairly good afterlife. You're given, you know, the food. You're given, you know, the ambrosia, if you will. You're given the, you know, the clean water, the wine. So your afterlife is pleasant, or even perhaps wonderful. But if your family forgets you, if you leave no heirs, if you offend everybody and you're buried without a name basically, and no one remembers you, no tombstone or nothing, no afterlife, you become a wretched, forgotten soul in that underworld, and you are destined to consume the dust of hell. You know, what was basically their version of, well, pretty much the interesting thing about afterlife is it's always like a purgatory in every culture until Christianity comes along and kind of gives it a heaven. I mean, even people who believe that they're going to potentially go to Valhalla, you know, Valhalla is heavenly to people who like that stuff, but to me that would be a miserable bore to always be drinking and fighting all the time. Like, dude, sometimes I want to do other things, but some people would like that, right? So that's their heaven. And in fact, there was more than one heaven potentially for people, more than one afterlife for the Norse anyway. So it wasn't, you know, that was just the one warriors wanted to go to. It was the more noble one. You were chosen by Odin, right? So in the same way, you could have an afterlife that was pleasant, but you needed to have that love and respect from your offspring or somebody. And this was, they understood that, you know, whether they realized they knew it or they knew they knew it, the soul lives forever in that way. The soul lives forever if it's remembered, right? Somehow. I mean, it could be remembered in a lot of different ways. Maybe it's remembered by the stone, right? Maybe because you carved your name in it. Like, think about the cave paintings in France. Go to France and the 30,000-year-old cave paintings that show Paleolithic man's cave paintings. That guy's hand will be there for a very long time unless somebody goes in there and destroys it. There's not a lot of natural processes that'll get rid of it. And so the spirit of that person, maybe it's just reduced to its artwork, but that's still a thing that consciousness can inhabit. That's still where consciousness can inhabit. And so in that way, that would be like one of the oldest living souls, would be that ancient handprint guy, whoever did those, right? Just as an example. If I'm right. And people will say, like, they'll go into those caves and they'll feel presences. They'll feel weird. They feel like they've walked back in time. To me, that's a sign. That's absolutely a sign to me that there is something going on with that. This is also why the Sumerians and the Egyptians had a big deal about, preserving afterlife stuff. This is why you have the Book of the Dead, and the Book of the Dead that we have is just a small version. There's the rich people version, and there was several versions. The spells we have in there are even incomplete. He couldn't afford all of the spells that would get you to a successful afterlife. Having your heart weight on the scales, for example. I forget what his name was, but the scribe. I think it was a scribe. Who was just rich and powerful enough to afford a very basic Book of the Dead for himself. So that's really interesting to know. Like, this is how important this stuff was for them. And the same thing applies to a different extent to Sumeria, because the folklore goes that if you have ancestors that you're not giving libations to, offerings to, fairly regularly, then they may come haunt you. And it was pretty common. In fact, people really, it wasn't just superstition for them. If something went happen, like maybe, your wife is baking bread and she drops the only clay bowl that you have to mix it all in and it breaks on the floor, you go, oh, that's probably because I didn't honor Grandpa last night. Oh man, I should have. It was a full moon and I promised him and I didn't do it because I didn't feel well, and Grandpa got mad because he was hungry and he knocked the bowl over. I'm exaggerating, but that's kind of probably what it was. And there's actually, if you look at the lore a little bit, which I don't have full access to, but if you do some research, obviously, from people who are able to do better research than I ever will, they will talk about stories like that. They actually have records of stuff like that. And there were, like, Sumerian ghostbusters that would go around, if you will, and they would do, rituals to placate wayward spirits. And they were very common and very understood to those people. Very interesting. And Lilitu, for example, you have Lilitu, that was a scary spirit. That was part of a ghost story, but it wasn't even that bad. But you had, oh my goodness, Pazuzu. Pazuzu, the demon that was featured in The Exorcist, was a terrifying monster, but he was a good guy. Like, he was there to scare the bad demons, like Lilith away. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting to me. So why am I saying all of this to respond to Yepson's question? That is because your environment is chock full of potential egregoric spiritual identities. Yeah, Crackbite said Pazuzu. Yeah. It's chock full of potential egregoric reality that you could access. Now, when I stayed at a hotel in Honesdale, I think it's just called the Honesdale Motel or something, I forget. But Honesdale, PA, I was there for a weekend, and that fucker's old as hell. The rumor goes that President Lincoln actually decided to run for president while he was there. And I identified, if I remember correctly, I think it was at least 9 individual spirits that I was able to start communicating with, but there was way more than that, actually, and not all of them died there. And I did this by doing a channeling where I was scribbling. I was doing automatic writing. And my method of automatic writing is I just get a bunch of paper and I get a pencil and I just let my mind go blank and I just start visualizing things. I go kind of like in an astral way. I visualize as best I can. I imagine as best I can. And I don't think about writing anything. Like, I don't think that at all. What I do is I rest my hand like neutrally, like in the middle of the paper, find the edges. Sometimes I'll put 2 books down, right? So I can really find the edges. And I will I'll just start making squiggles with my hand. At first I'll focus on trying not to repeat a pattern. So I'll start with like a figure 8, then a circle, then a 1, and I'll just keep going until I feel like I'm not paying attention to it anymore and my hand's just doing whatever it wants to do. And, as exaggerated or unexaggerated as I want, maybe I'll make zeros, maybe I'll make ones, whatever I'll do, I'll just keep scribbling. And once I feel like I let go, I'll just start letting my hand go across the page and let it do what it wants. And I'll do my best to not pay attention to my hand. I'll do whatever I can. If that means I have to focus on I'm doing it right now, by the way. If I have to, I'll focus on a spirit or talking or something, anything else, after trying to invite spirits to use my hand for that purpose. And then I'll just keep going until I'm tired of it, or until I feel like I can't do it anymore, like I'm starting to break my concentration, I'm starting to focus on my hand again. Once I feel like I can't do it anymore, then I stop, I take a break, and maybe I'll write down, what I saw visually. So if I saw spirits in my mind's eye, I'll write that down. I'll make sure it's recorded, and then I will go and I'll look at my sheet of paper, and I will do my best to identify anything that looks like a letter or a word or a picture that looks strong. Like if it's, because any circle could be an O, so you got to be careful with that, obviously. But if it looks like I wrote a word, or it's got the shape of a word, I'll try to discern it, and I'll flip it around. I'll do upside down. I'll do sideways. I'll show it to my wife. I'll post it online. I'll get as many opinions as I can, kind of like you would do if you were looking for smoke signals in the sky, right? Like clouds in the sky, and then you just go with that. Whatever words you find, then you maybe research that, and maybe you'll find, there's been days where I've gone through 3 sheets of paper and it's just scribbles, and I know that I was doing it right, so I go, well, I didn't get anything. Then there's days where I look through it and it's obvious that I couldn't have just lazily wrote this because it's that bad, to be brutally honest. Like, there's a point where something's so random, you didn't do it. Like it's so crappy. It's so like, even if I was trying to fake doing it wrong, it would still look fake, right? You can kind of tell. When I see something like that, I go, okay, I know I didn't. Maybe sometimes there's letters spread out all over the page even. And I will, like a word jumble, I'll figure out what the words are, and sometimes it will be something reliable and I can research it. And I forget, I made a Facebook post about it, this is why I write stuff down so I don't have to remember. But I identified a couple of things that when I researched it later, that's another important thing is, if you're going to do this, let me rewind for those of you taking notes. If you want to try this, don't start by researching the location. Don't be stupid. All you need to know is that, has there been ghost sightings in this location? Has there been spiritual encounters here? Or is there a demon you want to contact? Or whatever the spirit is. Don't over-research, especially if you're doing this. You need to go in cold and blind with minimum knowledge. The only thing you're allowing yourself to know for sure is that there is the potential to find something. That's all you need. So, like, if I was going to take you, I'd be like, okay, this what is it called? The Hotel on Main or something like that. My wife's asleep right. I asked her. She completely conked out. But Wayne on Main. I think that's what it is. The Wayne Hotel. That's what it is. The Wayne Hotel on Main Street in Honesdale. So when I looked this up, all I let myself do was know that it was haunted and that there was a Ghost Hunters episode, I think, that went there. And I'm like, perfect. That means I'm slamming the door, no more research. And then I'm going to research it when I was done. Now, it was good because I did, I believe, identify one of the spirits that was there accurately enough. Like I got close enough. And I forget why, but I think I had said something about, I'll have to look it up. I'm probably remembering this wrong, so don't quote me. But I think I remember reading something about something in the stable. And I didn't know why. And then I found out, I'm pretty sure it was that someone was a stable boy and died there or something like that. So I think I got something, right? And it wasn't, I didn't learn anything. It wasn't like I got a huge gnosis from it, but I love that kind of validation, because that means your skill is at least capable. Like it may not be, good enough to get on HBO or something, but it's good enough to say you have it. So that's my gnosis. I should cut this piece out for a proper video, but that's my gnosis about automatic writing. It's actually very useful as a skill to learn. I don't use it as much as I should, to be really honest. It's something I should do a lot more of. So yeah. So okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to scroll up now. But the reason that's important is because let's say you come to a place like this and the spirits are different, the energies are different. Hey, that's one way you could potentially get a handle on that. So let me scroll up if I can. Of course, I'm using a laptop, so it's got funky ways to do all this. Let's see. Who was it I wanted to answer before? They asked I think it was CJ. Who was that? My wifey's asleep, so I can't count on her to find out for me. What's up, Juan Goma? He says, hey, what's up? So we doing the Shadow Zone on Facebook. Dude, I think I know who you are. I completely forgot about that, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I completely forgot about that. If you're still here, Juan, please forgive me. Message me again on Facebook, and we can talk about that. You know what it was? I think when you asked, I was doing some crazy stuff at the time, and it slipped me. You know what? If you can, join my Discord or email me. Email, I don't lose as much. Like I might be a little late seeing it, but I don't lose it. There we go. CJ Anger reposted his question, so I'll get to that next. So what are the foundational skills one should develop when starting out in magic? Okay. So let me take a second here. Let me take a sip. Timothy, thank you for saying that's great advice. I appreciate that. What's up, empirical guessologist? Love you too, sister. Good to see you. Had a great talk the other day. Don't be a stranger in the community. Join us. Join us. All right. Let me take a second to think about that. So I'm not just going to be one of those guys and say, pick up Become the Maelstrom and read that, because that's not how I roll. Especially since I feel like that book is becoming outdated and I want to replace it sometime soon. But everything in the methodology section of that book, if you have it, those are the foundational skills I would work on. Performing ritual and spell work, to me, is not the most important part. It's important, it's fun. But that's the floor show of real mystical power. Ritual is useful, especially for some people. So I'm not saying like don't do it. Don't please don't misunderstand my emphasis here. Obviously I do it, but I do it a lot less than a lot of my associates in the community. I don't do 2 or 3 rituals a day, at least not what people would call a ritual. Granted, if we're being honest, what counts as a ritual could be just the way you brush your teeth at night, right? You do it the same way all the time, so that's kind of like a ritual. Absolutely a kind of ritual. But when we're talking about a magical ritual, an esoteric ritual, that stuff you can burn out on it, in my opinion. You can absolutely burn out badly on it. But for some people, it's how they keep going, right? So there is no right or wrong here. There is some people really need to do ritual daily, and some people need to do it weekly, and some people do it monthly. I am, for whatever reason, the type of person I am, I guess because I'm a little bit of, ADD and OCD, which is a fun mix to have. There are times, and I apologize if this fan makes it loud in here. There are times when I feel like I've got to do something like daily, something. And then there's times where I feel like I don't want to do anything for like a week. Now, I will tell you that I absolutely do something spiritual every day. That whether that's light a stick of incense and give a thought to a spirit, or meditate. Usually it's something along the lines of meditating. But that's important to me. And I would also say that a lot of the things that other people do ritual for, I don't. So, in other words, some people, and Crackbite just said, some people really enjoy following rules, other people enjoy when they aren't following rules, and that's exactly right. So for me, I would say that, so for example, mediumship. People get like into their head that you've got to open portals and summon spirits and give them big banging rituals all the time. To be brutally honest, that's not how it works at all. It's something that happens to me normally. If I'm daydreaming, I might witness a spirit. And I mean, even as much as I say imagination and the spirit world are the same, there is a distinction between, and I hate the word just, you know this, but just the imagination and a spirit when a spirit's really there. That is to say, when it's not just something your fanciful imagination is doing, but it's like you've handed like player 2 controls over to your imagination to something else. When that happens, it happens to me pretty frequently, especially when we're driving. As I said earlier, I can trance out when we're driving, and I'll have all kinds of weird experiences, guys, like really weird ones. And like, for example, an old friend of mine who died in 2008, I witnessed what I can only assume is his spirit contacting me on a car ride home from a place nearby where I live. And, while I was zoned out gazing into a crystal, his voice and his visage just appeared in my imagination, and I ran with it. And next thing I know, I'm having a conversation in my head with this guy, and it's like he never died. And it gave me a lot of closure, actually, because when he died, we weren't talking. And it was great, and I wrote a blog article about it the next day. So for me, there's no need for rituals to do a lot of this stuff. Now, that includes even getting an outcome, you know. And I'm the first person, or one of the few people in our community anyway, to try to really reinforce this idea that you need to get away from the idea that magic causes things to happen, like in the movies. You need to, instead of thinking like the craft, like we caused it to happen, you should be thinking more along the lines of, if you are the one true God, which you are, and if you are the incarnation of that God, then that means you're already doing everything. And everything is already the way it's supposed to be right now. So that means you're not really causing it in the D.H. Thorne sense. You're causing it in the universal sense. But what D.H. Thorne wants is not causing it, it's coincidental with it. It's synchronistic with it. So if I do a spell for money, it's not, I didn't get money because I did the spell. I got the money because I was going to get the money. And I did the spell because I was supposed to have an awakening moment where I felt and realized that I was the divine. And if you need me to repeat that, I will. Because that's the most powerful fucking thing that I've learned in magic. That's absolutely the most powerful thing, more powerful than any ritual system, more powerful than any religion or any god, is to recognize you are God, you're it. You're all it, we're all it, but you are it for you. In your experience of this reality, you are God manifesting through this tiny little thing that you call a person. You're already doing the entire world, all of it. Every single molecule and atom that is happening. That's you in motion. So this idea that little D.H. Thorne could make that change in a big way is silly. Because D.H. Thorne is also part of that movement. What's up, Serpent? We know who you are, Hanuman. What's going on, brother? You are that. Tat Vamasi, that thou art. You are this. You're the damn bottle of soda in my hand. That's you. And you caught it. So when you look at it from that perspective, your ritual can't cause anything. Your ritual is rather the trumpets that sound as the king enters the castle walls. It's a coincidental event that is timed to bring attention. This is why I said the trumpets that sound. Please write this shit down if you're not, because I feel like I should be. The rituals are the trumpets that sound that announce the king. So they draw your attention to your divinity. That's it. It does not matter what your ritual is. So if you understand what I just said, then that would be the most fundamental thing you need to learn. That's it. Everything else is a toy that you wrap around it. If you can learn what I just told you, if you can really learn it, and I don't just mean think it, I mean if you can really fucking learn that, hardcore learn it, I mean live it. When you wake up to realize that you're doing, when you look at that sunrise, you're making the sunrise already. Not D.H. Thorne made the sunrise. The same thing that makes D.H. Thorne is making the sunrise, and that is what you are. That is not an external. So basically, take what the Christians say. When the Christians say that God manifests the world and all this bullshit, they make that God external to themselves. They make God an external entity from you. You need to see that God as you, but you've only forgotten it. You're an ignorant incarnation of that God. That's what you are. When we disillusion ourselves from our ego, it's not because the ego is stupid or bad or we shouldn't have it. It's that God should never forget itself. Or I shouldn't say shouldn't. It is that God forgets itself. And so long as it thinks it's the ego, it will experience the ego as self. That is what causes the true suffering. And if you don't want that, you can eject from that very easily. So Just for everybody who's bitching and moaning about Yepsen, I know you're mostly kidding, but he has been fired. We don't want him back ever again. Maybe if he gives me the proper love. That's why I'm in a hotel. We broke up. Me and Flesh Priest broke up, and that's why we're not doing a stream tonight, and I'm very depressed. So I'm doing the stream from a hotel. This is actually a bottle of grape Jack Daniels, and I'm going to cry when this is over, because he cheated on me with some guy where he lives, and I'm very disappointed. So he's never going to be on the stream ever again. So hopefully you guys love me enough to stick around without him. But you know, what is it, becoming the Flesh Priest? You know, I love the fact that you guys love Fleshy. Don't even think I'm being serious for a moment. But so that's the most important thing, CJ. I think it was CJ. I feel stupid. Yeah, I think it was CJ. That is the most important fundamental thing you can ever learn. Every single other skill is born from learning that thing. Now, once you've learned that idea, what can you learn to improve everything else? Well, for me, I can tell you that yes, I learned the technical things about magic first when I was very young. I guess 12, 13, 14 is when I started dabbling. I started reading it more formally, maybe my later teens. Never really committed to any system. I sort of read through, I think it was I don't remember what book. Might have been like the 10 lessons or 7 lessons of modern magic, and some other Kabbalistic book, and maybe some offshoots of some stuff. Definitely some weird fake pagan stuff like the 21 Lessons of Merlin, and I think it's called Dancing with Dragons was a book I used to like. And all of that's rooted in either, you know, some kind of weird Wiccan pagan offshoot, or Golden Dawn offshoot, or stuff like that. What was the other one I was reading? Oh, the Necronomicon, of course. But that doesn't really teach you anything, right? Not by themselves. And I certainly wasn't practicing Golden Dawn. I certainly wasn't practicing the Kabbalah. I never made a wand. I never did any of the stuff you're supposed to do for that. I never cared about the Sephiroth. I tried getting it. And as a teenager with OCD and ADHD, I wasn't in the mood for learning this dry Kabbalistic material. I just wasn't into it, because there wasn't any spells in it. It was just different ways to talk to God is what it looked like. I'm like, well, I'm a Christian at the time. I'll just pray. I don't need all this stuff. To me, it was silly. So I learned about it, but I was more interested in Zen and various similar things to Zen. So I was interested in specifically what Zen had trickled into the Western world of the 90s. And for me, someone who was obsessed with ninjas and Japanese culture, that meant that I was really into things like Zen Buddhism, Shintoism, Kujikiri, Kuji-in, from the ninja, themed stuff, because that's what I was into. So I learned, I trained myself with basic Kuji, the breathing meditations. Through my martial arts, I also learned some very, 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 anybody who practices this legit, I'm not trying to say I know it, but we did learn a little bit of Qigong through my martial arts classes. We did some of that iron palm stuff, things like that. Very weak, basic stuff. I learned how to feel, Qi energy in my hands, how to make, balls and feel it. I could really do it even as a younger person. But I was really into transcendental meditation because I liked hypnosis. So probably the most foundational skill for me. So if I was going to tell you what skill to learn to be a better magician, all of them, but transcendental meditation would be very near the very top, maybe even the top, because that is how you come to recognize that you're God. Here's why. Let me take a drink. If you're following that Zen style tradition, you're never supposed to say you're God. That's like a big taboo. You're never supposed to think. In fact, they would say, "Oh, Thorne, you're absolutely not enlightened because you think you're God." I don't think that's right. I think that denying what you experience is no better. I think that that's an egoistic trip too. So here's why it helps. When you can practice what the Zen style would call mindfulness and achieve like satori, or if you can do yoga and get samadhi, they're very similar. They're not the same, by the way. There's definitely a subtle difference. I've absolutely experienced both to different degrees. Samadhi I had like a full-on experience of, I believe, once. But I've had like lower versions of it more often. Satori, though, I think is a lot easier for me. Like, to me, that is just a state of full mindfulness, and it's just fully in the moment. I am not aware of any one thing to the exclusion of others. I feel like there's no separation between me and things the way that I normally do. It's like my vision's soft, but I see everything in my environment that's possible to be seen, and I feel very connected with everything. Not that my senses are really that heightened or anything. It's not like I would pick up a pin drop in another room or anything, but I feel like a total lack of identified focus, I think is what I'm talking about. So, maybe that's how I would describe it. But anyway, the reason this is important, it does crack, but yeah, it sounds like that to me too. It's actually the air conditioning. Thank you, Ajahn. I would agree with you, because when I had samadhi, I had like an out-of-body type experience, to be really honest. It was trippy as fuck. I'll never forget it. So okay, let me start over a little bit. Let me kind of recenter. So why is it important to do transcendental stuff first? To do meditation first? Meditation properly done. When I say meditation, I'm mostly referring to 3 specific states of consciousness. The very first is the easiest for most people, and that is the open-minded gazing state. That is basically daydreaming. So when you're daydreaming, that's an altered state of consciousness. You are, your focus is changing from the immediate. So let's say I'm just sitting in this chair comfortably and I'm zoning out, and I kind of get comfortable and I start daydreaming stuff. I'm still aware of my environment. Sometimes what I'm daydreaming will take place in my environment. In fact, a lot of times it does. But I'm seeing an imaginary world, right? But that version of it where it is really deep daydreaming is actually astral. It's not just a fanciful daydream. It is, you're potentially seeing something that's really there in a spiritual way. So for example, maybe, this is hypothetical, it's never happened to me, but maybe I'll be sitting in front of an old tree where they hung people back in the old days. Because there's trees like that where I live that, there's trees that are maybe 200 or 300 years old sometimes, or maybe close to 100 years old, something like that. So like maybe that's the tree where they hung somebody, and it's got a bad reputation, everybody's scared of it. And maybe I'll daydream, I'll sit there staring at it, and I'll imagine corpses hanging from it. And I'll imagine that the tree is like enveloped in black goo and it's got like death energy all over it. And then I'll find out that was the hanging tree, and I'll be like, oh shit. So I basically saw like the egregoric imprint of all of that, right? In an imaginary way. I'm not saying that there was literally ghosts hanging from it, but it's my subconscious picked up on whatever it is that told me that, and I saw that. So you can have these experiences that are really valid by daydream. So that's the open state. But that's not the most important one. In fact, the open state can be one of the most problematic states, because you can take those things for the genuine article. Just like I said before, when I saw, hypothetically, people hanging from the tree, because it didn't happen. But if I saw that, if I believed that was the spirits of people hanging from the tree and I could identify them one for one, I'm not saying you couldn't, but if I thought that, like materialistically, in a way, if I really thought of it like that, then that would actually be a big problem for me. Because then I would be believing in a materialistic version of something that is more subconscious and subliminal, right? I'd be taking it too literally. And in fact, I would say that superstitiousness is taking the truth too literally, right? That's what it is. It's taking it too literally. Superstition is nothing if not taking myth too literally. And myth includes your imagination. That's not to say your imagination is invalid. I'm the first person to say it is valid. But don't take it too literally. Take your imagination for what it's meant to be, a signpost, a direction. All right, so the next most important state of consciousness is what I call the focus state. Now, the focus state, whether there's a lot of thoughts going through your head or not, it is the ability to focus on something visually, mentally, orally, like you're hearing it in your mind, you're speaking it in your mind, you're having the awareness of something and you're focused on it very, very firmly. So, for example, the number 2. Can you hold the number 2 in your head for a while? And how long? And if you're holding it in your head for a while, and for how long, is it a repetitive 2, 2, 2, 2, 2? Or can you do 2 from start to finish that sound and hold that sound for a minute? And I don't mean 2 like a song. I mean, it's just there, the whole word. Can you hold the whole word in your head? Not just the letters. I mean the entirety, the meaning, the visual, the sound, the whole presence for more than a split second. Because if I told you to remember a number, what's most of you going to do? You're going to go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, right? You're going to keep repeating it to yourself. The irony is your mind doesn't have to do that. It remembers to say 2 over and over again. So it must remember 2. That's the funny part to me. Like if you're remembering to say 2 over and over and over again, even if it's like 5 seconds between saying it, your brain is capable of remembering and holding the thought 2 without saying it. So why do you have to say it at all? It's pretty interesting to me that that's something that a lot of us feel like we have to do. Especially if depending on the type of thinker you are, it's harder for you to remember things for a long time. If you don't make associations, for example, things don't, like if you try to just remember something in a vacuum, it's hard to remember. In fact, I actually have the belief that someone who isn't a habitual thinker, so I'm not a habitual thinker, I'm of the mind that someone who's not a habitual thinker can end up with a little bit more memory problems because we don't have as much to associate things with. Because I'm not sitting here going, blah, 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 2, blah, 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 2, blah, 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 2, 2, 2, 2, blah, 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 blah. So I don't have as much stuff to cross-associate because everything in memory is association. This is why if you want to remember something, you make a story out of it, a song out of it. You make things go together. You know, I remember 2 because it was 2 o'clock when Thorne said it, and therefore it's 2 o'clock, 2, 2, 2, 2. And now you'll never forget it, right? So this is why they'll tell you like to make a song out of things and stuff. Well, if you're not full of thoughts all the time, like I'm not full of thoughts very often, so my memory pretty much really is garbage like these days. I used to have a really good memory, but not anymore. But the focus state is really important for magic because when you're doing ritual, one of the things you're going to want to do, at least at some point, is to maintain concentration on something for a period of time and either hold it static in your mind or hold it alive in your mind. What do I mean by the difference? So static is, imagine a bird flying and its wings freeze and you just have that image in your mind of it's like stuck in flight. That's a frozen static memory. Now imagine the bird flying. Okay, so you've got like the wing beats going on in your mind. Now imagine that whole thing like not moving, but you have the whole movement in your head anyway. Like it's really hard to do. I can only do that a little bit. But so that's a static and a living memory, right? If you can hold those things in your mind for a period of time, the reason you want to be able to do that is because when you're doing a ritual, at some point, if it's for something, what you need to do is you need to visualize and know and feel whatever, however your mind works, because some people can't visualize. You need to, however your brain does this, you need to put yourself in the position, in memory, in imagination of experiencing the thing that you want fully. So let's say I want to do a spell. Money's always an easy one to talk about. Let's say I want to do a spell for money. I've got to visualize that money somehow. Maybe imagine the moment where I find out that I just sold 100 copies of my book on the first day and it's great. And I just made whatever that means, like $1,000 or whatever, or whatever, because it's $10 a copy. I just made $1,000 today because of that. And I imagine what that feels like and the little heartbeat that I get and all of it, everything that surrounds it, seeing the money in my bank account, seeing the notice, oh, I'm going to get this money. I visualize the whole thing, how it feels, how it smells, how my wife hugs me and kisses me and everything else that goes with it. And I really just, I just hold myself in that And I try to hone in on a very specific moment of it that I think is the most likely. So something that I really feel like I'm going to encounter if it happens. Like the steak dinner or something that I'm going to take my wife on if I get it. That kind of thing. And I'll focus on that moment to the exclusion of most of the others probably. And I'll hold it there for as long and firmly and, well, somebody cut that sound audio out. I'll hold it there for as long and firmly as I can and make sure that I'm fully invested energetically in that moment. And then that is usually the climax of the ritual. Quite literally, if you're doing certain kinds of sigil magic, you're literally, on a sigil. At that moment of climax in the ritual, you're focused so intently on that, then you let go. And when I say let go, that's when this final state of consciousness is so important. This final state of consciousness is also the one that will reveal your divinity to you more clearly. This final state of consciousness is what I call no mind, what I think EA often talks about as drop mind, what Zen masters would call mindfulness. It is a state of mind where habitual thinking is reduced / silenced. You can't, it's not that you're supposed to stop thinking, it's that habitual thinking is supposed to be subsided. It is supposed to, so how do you stop thinking? You can't say stop thinking and command it to stop. It doesn't work. The only way to stop thinking is to actually not look at it. It's kind of like turning your attention away from it. And when you turn your attention away from habitual thinking, you'll have moments of peace, if you will. Now, you have these moments of peace actually more than you realize. The studies show that when they do the studies, even people who think they think 24/7 go through periods of the day where there's no thoughts going through their head. They're just not aware of it because they don't think about it, right? They don't focus on it. They're not attending to it, so they don't know, right? Yeah, no mind, that was a Buddhist concept. Yeah, absolutely, no mind. Yep. And it's a current Buddhist concept. It doesn't go away. You just don't want, you're not trying to be a stone, though. That's another Buddhist thing they would warn you. You can't be a stone. And I'm not telling you, a stone would be something that has no experience. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that has dropped all habitual thinking, and you are living fully in the moment instead. That is to say, there's no thought process going on. There's no, so that useless chatter where it's like, oh, did I forget that I left the stove on? Did I do this? Did I do that? Oh, I got to do this later. Oh, I got to do that later. Ooh, look at the butt on that dude or girl or whatever. Like all those little habitual thoughts or visual ideas. Some people think visually rather than verbally, right? However you think, most people have a habitual problem with thinking where they can't really silence their mind very well. And that's actually why, you could call it anxiety thinking, right? Roust, I'm on the road because Flesh Priest and I broke up. I'm very sad. That's why he's not here right now. I'm crying in my drink. Who just said the thing about roses? Where'd that go? Rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. Yes. So to give an example of what it's like to be in a no mind state or an empty mind state or a mindful state, experience the rose without any thought. So I'm going to ask you guys a tough question. Some of you are going to have no problem with it. Some people are going to really go crazy. Can you look at that word and not read it? Right? Can you do that? Most people are going to say no. Some of you are going to say yes. Most people are going to say no. If you can say yes, then you can do mindfulness. If you can't say yes, then you can't do mindfulness yet. Now, here's the other funny part. If you can do mindfulness, you will see that word. You will not read it, but you'll know what it means. That's when you've transcended thought completely, and that's how you know that you really mastered that mindfulness state. So you don't look at the word and read ice in your mind, right? You're simply just aware of it. That is being fully integrated with your reality in the moment. So when you can do that, that's when you got a pretty good handle on mindfulness. Okay? So why is this important? for magic? Well, that lets you let go of that focus state that I was talking about. When you're focusing heavily on the thing you want and you just let go, that's when you're releasing that energy that you just built up. Or, and if that's being materialistic about it, which I'm not, but that's an explanation that works for people. It helps people get there. Or another way of thinking of it is somewhere in the multiverse, there is a universe where that thing you just imagined so hard is real. And by ideating on it so hard for that long, and you let go, it's like you're jumping the tracks from the reality that your consciousness is currently in to one where your consciousness wants to be. So you will have no experience of movement. It's like in Dune, when the Spacing Guild folds space, traveling without moving. You will travel consciously to the reality, which might be 2,000 steps to the the Y dimension, the W dimension of right, so it's a weird direction you can't see. So you just moved 2,000 steps that way, and it looks just like the world you're in now. There's no difference, except now in this other world, you've got the thing you were just ideating, and it is destined to be. That is the one I prefer as an explanation, by the way. I call it paradigm gate. Like you're basically some might call it quantum leaping. That's another way some people describe it. So you're literally jumping timelines, okay? And you don't know about it because your consciousness just naturally takes that fork in the road and goes there. But it's not the fork you were maybe supposed to be on, maybe. By doing the empty mind state, you're literally letting go of the tracks that you're on, because if you're ideating on your moment-to-moment life, you're clinging to those tracks. If you're clinging to the tracks of reality because you're like, that says ice, wife over there, I'm on a stream, someone said this, blah, 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 forgot to leave the stove off, if you can't get your brain off of that track, how can you go anywhere other than where you are? I mean, that's what I'm getting at. You need to be able to let go. In fact, that is also one of the reasons why it's so important for people who believe in karma. If you understand what karma means, it means action, and action means like movement, basically. It's a kind of movement. It's consequence. It is action, consequence. It is momentum. And it's built around, egoistic thinking and thinking in general. If you're really full of ideation, you're building karma all the time because you're so focused on the not real, and therefore your actions and everything are so based on the not real that it compounds. It is literally a reverberation. So you don't stop seeing that reality, right? So you want to, the more you can no longer ideate on things, the easier, not impossible without it, but the easier it will be. It just will be from experience. So my real breakthroughs in magic actually didn't happen until I was capable and focused on doing that kind of transcendental work already. Everything else, especially in my recent years, I should say, was really predicated upon my ability to transcendentally meditate in those three main ways. Those are the three most important ways that I can describe. But that's not even telling you how you're God. The secret is when you can do that Satori or Samadhi state, either one, to be brutally honest, you can then begin to reduce out the delusion. So think of it like a sensory deprivation tank. If you can do, how about this? For those of you who understand what I mean about mindfulness. So imagine you're in a state where you are perfectly aware of everything, your whole body, you kind of can feel most, if not all, your whole body, the entire environment is there, and you're not thinking, you're not habitually, your thought processes are silent and they're just fully receptive. So you're in that fully aware and in the moment state. Now imagine you're doing that in a sensory deprivation tank of some kind. So you have literally nothing to become aware of. Let that thought sink in for a minute. What do you think you're going to experience when you have no physicality to be aware of because of that? What do you think is going to happen when all you have to have your mind filled with is absolutely no stimulus at all? What do you think is going to happen? people, they just start dreaming, obviously. Right? And that's what happens. That's why people love it. They go into the sensory, and because their mind can't shut up, they start building a dream world for them. What if I were to tell you that what Zen monks are doing when they're facing a wall and just staring and getting hit with sticks if they fall asleep, that is a very primitive form of sensory deprivation tank. Do you know why? I'll give you guys a minute. Who knows why that's a sensory deprivation? Does anybody know why that's a sensory deprivation? No, it's not a tape loop, serpent. I'm here. No, I don't know. Maybe he's not talking to me. I'll give you guys a second. Does anybody know why meditating against the wall, like the Zen Buddhists do, is a form of sensory deprivation? Anybody understand that? I'll tell you why in a minute, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Let me read it. In fact, let me scroll up a little bit. Take a breath. I know everyone's like seems so upset. Fleshy's not here. So Fleshy, you're officially part of the group now. Hey, what's up, Nina? I didn't see you here. What's up? Let's see. I'm seeing a lot of great answers already. All right, good. Oh, okay, Serpent. Yeah, I know you. Okay, good. Got you. No, you're right. I wish I got the context. You're absolutely right that habitual thinking is like a series of patterns, right? And they just like reinforce one another. You're right. All right. It sounds like you guys all get it. Everybody who's responding pretty much either is nailing it or at least saying things that are close enough to the fact. So when you are meditating on that wall, your body and brain has a fun habit. And you can experience this anytime you want to, in fact. When you experience something monotonous enough, your brain tunes it out after a while. So if you are in a room with a fan running, it doesn't take long for you not to hear it anymore. Now, I live like 100 yards from a railroad track that is busy because I live in a populated area, so it goes by during the busy time like every half hour, and it's loud as fuck. The horn goes off, and it's annoying as shit. And when I first moved there, I was like, this sucks. But I don't know how quickly, but pretty quickly, within maybe a couple weeks, month at most. After about a month at most, I didn't hear the train at all. You could be like, did a train go? I'd be like, I don't know. My brain tunes it completely out unless I'm doing a live stream and I'm really trying to like focus on my sound quality and shit. I'll realize like I'll be trying to say something like turn, like, oh fuck, there goes the train. Otherwise, I never notice it. So your body and brain have a magnificent way of tuning out things that are boring or monotonous or regular. This includes pain, by the way. So there's people like me, like for about 2 years, because I had a wrong chair, fucked my back up, and I'm starting to get better again already, actually, because I heal really quickly when things are right. I was getting backaches for the last 2 years pretty much constantly. Like my back was at like, the lowest would be a 3 on the scale of 10 of pain, and the highest would be like a 5 or a 6 all the time, constantly. It's a wonder I didn't have like a nervous breakdown, because people, who experience like that kind of pain, they usually get grouchy at least after a while. So for like 2 years, I'm experiencing that level of pain all the time and working through it and ignoring it and just, whatever. My cortisol is probably through the roof because of it, but I don't feel it like that. I'm just like, it hurts, whatever, right? I'm like that with toothaches. Like when I've had teeth literally rot out of my head, and I don't feel any of it, not even a little bit. So your brain and body has a way of tuning things out the longer it experiences. That's why a throbbing pain hurts much more. If you've ever had like a swollen gum or something, throbbing pain hurts way more than just a dead pain. Like a cut hurts, but unless it's throbbing, you can kind of tune it out and go back to your life. It's only when it's swollen and pulsing. And the reason that hurts more is because it's variable. It changes so much. So maybe I'm over-explaining it, but for those of you who didn't answer and don't know, that's why you would sit in front of a wall, staring at a wall, because this would allow you to tune out all of your senses. And when you tune out all of those senses, you have to ask yourself what's left. So let's return to that thought experiment. For those of you who understand mindfulness, Satori, Zen, for those of you who fully understand what I'm talking about when I say be fully in the moment with no extraneous habitual thinking, I'm not saying you can't think. Remember, I'm not saying that. There's a time you really need to think. If I'm doing math, I really got to pull out my thoughts. I can't do 2 plus 2 unless it's something I memorized. I can't do 2 plus 2 times 400 billion or whatever. Actually, that's not that hard because it'd be like, 4 times. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. To do long form math, I got to think about it, write it out, use a calculator. But to live my life and function, I don't need to think really at all. I can write without thinking. I can walk around. I can do my job. I can do this stream. In fact, I was talking to people last night when Eddie was holding that class on Discord. When I sound my most idiotic is when I'm thinking. Like that's when I'm like really talking like a fool. When I'm in the zone and I'm just letting words come out when they want to, it's better. It's just so much better. It's a perfect stream of consciousness without ideation behind it. I'm literally just flowing in what I want to say. Mostly. Enough. So for those of you who understand what it's like to be in that full state of mind, that is that mindful or empty mind or drop mind state, if you understand if you can even do that, now do it so that you have nothing to ideate about even if you wanted to. This is when the magic happens because you're going to reduce out everything. Correct, Ajna, vidya flow, as opposed to avidya, which is our normal life, ignorance. When you are in that sensory deprivation chamber and you have nothing to experience, what do you think is left? Some of you know this already because you've done it somehow. You've had the experience. But if you've never done this, if you don't know, what do you think remains? Answer it in the chat if you know or want to guess. What do you think is left if there is no active thinking, like habitual thinking, no daydreaming, no sensory input whatsoever? What is left of you? When you have removed everything, what do you think is left? I'm going to wait for a few answers before I jump. Okay, very good. So either you guys are all copying each other or some of you are very wise. So what is left is consciousness awareness, okay? I feel like awareness is higher than consciousness because I believe consciousness is an activity of awareness, if you want to be brutally honest. I think that consciousness is what results when awareness has nothing else to be aware of but itself, which is really all it has. But when awareness is only aware of itself, in other words, it's stopped having experiences, it's aware of itself, and then it's just self-consciousness. So if I were to ask you guys, good night, Nina. If I were to ask you guys, what are you aware of when you're aware of yourself? Well, you're consciously aware of yourself. That means consciousness. If you're just awareness, and I've said this a million times before, awareness needs something to be aware of. Awareness is a subjective experience, and it must have something to have an experience of. This sounds like duality, because you'd say, well, then that means there must be something other than awareness for it to be aware of. Incorrect. Awareness can be aware of itself. So what are you left with when you have nothing else to be aware of? Awareness. And what is awareness becoming aware of? Itself. And what happens when awareness becomes aware of itself? It is conscious. And what happens with consciousness? It can create universes. So while you're in that state of perfect no mind with absolutely no distraction, that's when you become a creator God that creates a universe for yourself in that moment. And it may only last for a moment. It's why I will say, very hubristically sounding, I will snap my fingers and entire galaxies and universes are formed in the wake of that moment. Not because I think D.H. Thorne is so strong, but because when I fade into nothingness, the only thing left is the eternal, immortal, primordial darkness. And what always happens in that darkness? Sooner or later, something moves upon the still waters and says, let there be light. And then there is. So how do I know? This is just a funky thought if you want to write some interesting fiction. How do you know that the entire universe that you're experiencing right now is not simply something that your bored brain in the womb just invented to live in? Because it was bored, it had nothing to think about. Yeah, I'm born and now I'm growing up and now I'm D.H. Thorne and now I've got a YouTube channel. How cool! What if that's all it is? I'm not saying that's what it is, but I am saying that's what it is. Because that's what your divinity is doing on a bigger scale. Your divinity is putting everything in the sky right now. That same way. Your divinity, every night you go to sleep, you lose consciousness, but you don't. That's the rub. You only think you lose consciousness because when you wake up in the morning, 8 hours passed if you're lucky. 8 hours passed. And I wasn't conscious of those 8 hours. I must have lost consciousness. Well, what was it like to lose consciousness? I have no idea. I wasn't conscious. So how do you know you lost consciousness? Well, I don't. So what happened? Well, I closed my eyes. The next thing I know, I was dreaming, and then I woke up. Okay. So all you can really say is you don't remember. You can't say you weren't conscious. Well, that's fair, I guess, right? Yeah, of course that's fair. I'm having a conversation with myself. Isn't that fun? You can say, I have no memory of consciousness. But you can never say, I never had consciousness. It's impossible. You can't say, I lost consciousness. You can say, I lost memory of consciousness. You know how I know this for a fact? Scientists, again, I love scientists. They're so great. They can give you sedatives, knock you the fuck out, and you can come back from them. Have a conversation with them. Go back to sleep because you still have sedatives in your body. Wake up and have no memory of having that conversation at all. You get blackout drunk, basically. If you've ever been blackout drunk, you know what I'm talking about. People can have you on video doing things, walking around. You were obviously conscious when it happens. Think about somebody who does sleepwalking. They can be fully conscious of their environment and their activity and everything about it, but carry no memory of it. What the fuck does that mean? So the point I'm making here is you may not remember that you're not conscious. Or excuse me, you may not remember being conscious, but you're always conscious. Conscious doesn't stop. That's all. Consciousness never stops. So what does it do when it's got nothing to ideate? When it's got nothing to experience? When avidya is cleared, as Ajna might say. When there's no avidya to think about. What does it do? Well, it gets bored and it makes a whole new universe for itself. So for all you know, hear me out, guys. For all you know, a moment ago never existed. For all you know, the night you went to sleep last night never happened. For all you know, this morning was the moment when you as divinity decided to be you for the first time. And it dreamt up every memory you've ever had. There's no way for you to know that anything you've ever experienced has ever happened. There is no way. You only can trust it. Science would just say trust it because it's, there's certain assumptions we have to make about reality for it to be valid. Right? So I know CJ asked a simple question. But what I'm telling you right now, anybody who tells you the secret to magic is how you do a chant or this set of rituals or buy this book or you need a wand made out of hemlock versus one out of willow or willow made out of willow and blah, 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 blah. Anyone who tells you these mechanical sounding techniques is a charlatan. Or they don't know. And they just don't know better. So maybe they're not a charlatan. Maybe they really believe it and they have success. That's fine. They're going to have success without that. But if you don't have what I'm teaching you, this stuff, this is the higher truth from which magic precipitates. Magic is a precipitated experience from what I'm telling you. Magic is the technology. This is the hyper-realistic physics. This is the real science from which the technology is born. And I don't like to see magic as technology. I think it's art. So magic is the art form of the metaphysics I just taught you. When you realize that you are God, magic is the art that you perform to bring that reality into manifestation. This is why I talk about art being magic and manifestation being a part of art and magic, etc. Because we've had this conversation, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. What is the role of art? Art's role is to make you aware of things. Art is a way for you to become aware of something already within yourself. So music doesn't make you feel happiness or sadness. It doesn't cause anything. But what music does is it entrains your attention on something that makes you aware of your happiness or your sadness. So, to put it another way, unless there is a seed of sadness in your heart already, a sad song won't make you sad. It just won't work. If I hear a sad song and I have no sadness in my heart, I might laugh. Right? When you think about the sad violin, the world's smallest violin, I'm playing. That's funny. But if you were in a bad enough mood and I played that song for real for you, you might cry. A good example of a song like that is Young Frankenstein and the violin that they play for Frankenstein. It always seemed like an awesome song. It's beautiful, beautiful melody. So that is in a nutshell what the ritual magic is doing. When you're doing the magic of ritual, when you're doing ritualized magic, and then you have a result. So you do your ritual for $10,000, and a week later, $100 appears. You're happy because you got your $100, and for a moment, you feel like God. So what was magic doing? Magic was making you aware of your divinity. That's what it was. That's its role. Done. That's it. Magic didn't cause the $100. Magic caused you to become aware of your role as an avatar. You are all avatars for the divine. All of you. What else do you need to know? Nothing else is necessary. Because when you realize that you are the divine being that you are, everything else is already going according to plan. Once you realize that you are divinity incarnate, you realize that there's no escaping from it. You realize that your reality is exactly what it's going to be. And your job is to lose yourself in the simulation and have the most exciting experience possible. When you realize that, even ripping your arms off in a freaking, bailing machine is part of the adventure. And you're going to live through that, and it's going to hurt. You're going to hate it. But your divinity is going, this is the stuff. Wow, you see all the blood? That was so cool. We did that. I did that. Now look at me. I'm living with no arms. And I know it sounds ridiculous, guys. It really does, but it's the truth. If you're God, then every experience is divine. The worst to the best. They're all good in that way. They're all by choice. Every single thing that happens is consensual. Nothing that happens in the universe is not. And I know some person who's really high on their victimhood is going to say, that's not true, because I was a victim of this and that, and I didn't do that to myself, and they're gonna get real mad real fast. I get it. I would feel mad too if I was trapped in that world. I would too. But you're only trapped in that world because it validates you. It completely validates your ego. So your ego is validated by suffering. That's why it suffers. That's why I said in Become the Maelstrom, you only suffer because you think you're not supposed to. If you realize that suffering is a necessary part of the experience, you don't suffer it anymore, ironically enough. When you let go, you don't hurt anymore. Think of it like this. Think of reality as think of it as a red hot piece of brass that you've reached down and picked up because you thought it was gold, and your hand is just baking away, sizzling and smoking. If you want it to hurt less, you got to let go. But because you're holding on to it, it's never going to stop hurting. You think that by holding on to that brass, you're getting a piece of gold. And so you're suffering. This is so important. I'm losing my hand. Fuck. Let go of the fucking brass ball, guys. Let go of your desire not to hurt even. Just let go of the whole thing. It's still going to hurt. But let go of that fake brass ball. Let it go. Let go or be dragged, is the Zen saying. Which one do you think hurts more? Holding on to that brass ball forever and having it burn its way through your body, or just let it go? Right? Maybe it's not the best example, but it is an example. Ajna says, a friend of mine takes showers while baking his brains off and swears water brings him all sorts of messages and knowledge, like from all the beings. If you want to look it up, Ajna, they might not be wrong. You know what? I need another drink. Can you guys give me 1 second? I'm going to go across to there's like a little mini fridge. Let me go grab my drink from the mini fridge, okay? I can still talk while I'm doing it, but you can see my shorts. Ooh, so goth. Green shorts. I know you can all probably still hear me. Let me grab this here. What do I got? Ooh, I like that one. Classic one. I sound like such a jerk tonight. I watch myself on my streams and I go, wow, this guy's a jerk. Okay. Just remind me in a minute, Ajna, in case I forget. I promise to remember, but just in case I forget what I was going to say. There we go. So, how do I approach this so that it makes sense? All right. Okay. You didn't see anything? I'm sorry, Alpha. I'll stand up. I think my fly's up. Should be good. I usually keep it up. Now watch me spill soda all over my crappy new laptop that my mama got me. All right. So, have you guys ever heard of the programmability of water? How many of you guys have ever heard of that? How many of you guys have ever heard of the program? I'm going to wait a second because we probably got to wait for the delay. Alpha knows. Yeah. Okay, so some of you guys have heard of the programmability of water. And Alpha kind of gets the closest. It holds energy and emotion, right? That's the theory. Yes, Ajna, kind of like that. So there's a lot of different interpretations of this and a lot of different ways of talking about it. But if you look it up, there was a Japanese artist or scientist artist, or whatever the hell you want to call him. And he did this experiment where he did things like played music for water and yelled at water and sung to water and cuddled water and sent happy thoughts at it, negative thoughts. And he froze it while doing this. I don't know if he flash froze it, but however he did it, he froze it. And that water took on interesting patterns. Now, according to him, it was a legit experiment. Science, of course, says, like, we got problems with it, but it did make some interesting results. You know, water that was, like, yelled at, I guess, looked angry somehow, like things we'd call angry. But that's not the beginning of this theory. That's not where this comes from. This theory goes back to ancient times. And in the modern era, you see like people with these really special water filters, where the water filters are designed to restore the proper balance of the water, not in a chemical way, but in an energetic way. So it runs it through certain kinds of like rocks and swirls it a certain direction a certain number of times and all kinds of crazy shit to sort of neutralize the negative shit energy that it's picked up because of the synthetic world around it. Okay? But all of this is based on something that goes back at least, probably much further than this. To my knowledge, at least to the ancient Greeks. So the ancient, vodka's angry water. Someone should give a reverse super chat for that. That's a good one. Vodka's angry water. I fucking love that. I hate vodka, by the way. I fucking hate it. My drink of choice is like rum and shit like that. I guess I'm a pirate at heart, even though I like ninjas much better. So we can go back to the ancient Greeks at the very least. Because when we look at the golden triangle, the ratio and the angles and the shape of the golden triangle is almost exactly the same. It's like a little bit of a degree off from the angle of an H2O molecule. Fascinating. But I'm going to do it. Fascinating, Captain. Let's do it. No, yeah, that one. Beep. Fascinating, Captain. It's fascinating to know that the shape of the water molecule is almost exactly the same as the golden triangle. The golden triangle being a triangle which is like 1 over phi. So I forget the math for it. Look up Theory Apophasis. He's much better at this than I am. He's the big nerd. I'm just like the spiritual nerd. And this golden triangle, when done in triplicate, is a pentagram. And it was the symbol of hygiene, hygeia, and then it became hygiene in our modern lingo. And hygeia was a goddess of health, of life, a goddess of life. So life is where your real life is. The water is where your life is. That is to say, you could say that this biology is water with a bag around it. So your life is water with a bag around it. And that water is what contains your spiritual memory, according to this theory. So according to this theory, water contains what is your true memory. That is your long-term, your hyper-dimensional memory is in water. That's what they think. I think it's a stretch, but at least from a physical perspective, it's a stretch. But from a spiritual perspective, maybe. Because supposedly water is programmable in this theory. I think it's a little, from the skeptical side, maybe. But that's not where this trail ends, guys. That's not where this trail ends. If you look it up, if you look at the oracles, so all oracles were oracles of Apollo, not all, I shouldn't say all, but oracles of Apollo. You look at the oracles of Delphi. Does anybody know what the oracles of Delphi were doing when they were doing their oracle shit? I guarantee you someone here knows. Probably Eddie, because Eddie's a history nerd. Who here is a big enough history nerd to know what it looked like to go see an oracle of Delphi? Anybody know? I'll give you guys a second. So you go to Delphi and you go see an oracle. Where are you going and what do you see? Who knows? Everyone's just totally jamming on this idea. I love it. I don't even have to wait. You don't even have to tell me what's in the oracle chamber. I'll give you guys another second though. And it's just like, I feel like I just opened up a big book for people that they're just like, wait, what? Let me go research this. I love seeing this. No, that's not. They wouldn't scry into a dark bowl necessarily. No, that's not it. So the oracles of Delphi were in natural springs for the most part. And these natural springs released nitrous oxide in pretty heavy quantities, actually, for all things considered. And so they were in these caves, more or less. I think they built stuff around it, but they were in these caves, these natural caves. And nitrous oxide was bubbling up out of these pools of spring water. I think they were heated springs, actually. So they are in a state where their brain is being short-circuited by nitrous oxide, and they're immersed at least hip deep in this ancient water. You guys kind of seeing where this might be going? So the oracles of Delphi were hallucinating. Yes, they had an herb too, I believe. Yes. Yeah. Well, that was something separate, I think. But that was, I believe, part of it too, yes. That was Marion brought up the herb thing. But the big thing was they were immersed in water. They were high as fuck on nitrous oxide. And they were probably taking an herb too, probably. So they're hip deep at least in water. And it's natural water running through springs. It's ancient water. So this water, if it's programmable with memory, then the oracles were accessing a much higher memory state of consciousness and extra. So how many of you guys have your deepest thoughts when you're in a bath or a shower? Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because you're more relaxed? Maybe, very likely. But do you think maybe one of the reasons you're having more deep thoughts when you're in water is because you're connected with more deep thoughts, literally? Maybe. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm saying this is the theory in play. So Serpent says we're liquid crystals, literally. That is the theory. I'm not saying I buy the theory completely because I also understand a new idea called biophotonic light. Biophotonic memory, biophotonic consciousness is the idea that your bodily cells actually emit light in a visible wavelength that we can't see because it's too minute. It's like one photon at a time, very low level. However, our cells can pick it up and use it as a broadcast. So in other words, on top of the chemical interaction your body has, on top of the electrical, and electricity, of course, is just the other side of light, by the way. They're kind of related. Magnetism, electricity, and light, they're all kind of like different directions of the same field, perhaps, if you believe in certain types of physics, which most people don't. So your body, the cells in your body emit light, not just chemical and electrical signals, but light may also be a way it communicates with itself. You know how we know? They've done experiments where they found ways to block that light from other cells, and they didn't do as well, all other circumstances being equal. Interesting, isn't it? So the theory is that if this can affect hyperneural, like it's not affecting the brain, if they didn't do any tests with the brain with this, if it's affecting the rest of the body, this light thing, is it possible that maybe the higher realms of consciousness are light-based and not electrical or chemical? That would explain a fuck ton of stuff to a physical scientist. Because at that point, you can start to really tune in to the idea that consciousness is a pervasive thing in the universe, not a local thing. What if consciousness is in everything as light or electricity or whatever, and your brain tunes into it? What if that? That's what I believe, at least in a non-dual way. I don't think it's that mechanical, but I think that's how it manifests in the mechanical sense. I think panpsychism, I don't think is the explanation for it, but I think panpsychism is certainly one way it may manifest in this world. The higher divine Brahman, Atman, Maya thing might manifest in a panpsychist way. Very possible that consciousness is a field that the body and biology tunes into. If the biophotonic field theory is right, or has any legs at all, even a little bit, then that means your consciousness could be out here. But your sensory apparatuses are here. And so you, being an idiot, think you're here, but you're actually everywhere. Let me say that again. If consciousness, if you're stuck in the material world and you don't like my non-dual shit that I talk about, and you believe there's a real world, and that's it, but you're open to the possibility of panpsychism, that the idea that consciousness could be pervasive throughout all things, even inanimate things, like that wall. Watch somebody knock back. If consciousness is pervasive in all things, why do I feel more conscious than everything else? It's not because my brain produces consciousness. That's absurd. I don't believe that for a minute. I will, even if I see, I mean, maybe this is the wrong thing to say. Maybe I won't say this if it happens. But I would have a hard time believing if a scientist proved to me with math and shit that the brain produces consciousness. Because I bet you, if I really split it apart, I'd say, actually, it looks like the brain is receiving consciousness. What does that mean? So the brain might be like a radio antenna, a transceiver, a transmitter-receiver for consciousness. It's literally, think of it like this. Imagine that consciousness is an ocean, which is what we all do as non-dualists all the time. Let's imagine consciousness is an ocean, and your brain is a bobber floating on that ocean, and you think you're the bobber because that's what you're paying attention to right now. That's you in a nutshell. And this is what I talk about every fucking week with different metaphors every time. Why do I talk about this so much? Is it just that I'm like that OCD about it? No, because that's the magic. That's it. Everything else, every single other thing that you think is magic, the Book of Solomon, the Bible, the Book of Abramelin the Mage, all of these things. All of these, and we might have just lost connection, so I apologize if there's a blink. All of these other things are so low, so inferior, so base, benign, so base and banal. They are almost contemptible if you see them as the magic. If you think those books and those systems and those things are the magic, and I say this with all non-dual respect, you're a fool. You're an idiot. I mean that with all due respect. I used to think that too, so I'm saying it about myself. But if you think that those books, those sources, those practices, those rituals, any of that, if you think any of that is the magic, you haven't learned even the A in ABCs. You haven't even begun. All you're doing is parroting. You're not doing magic if that's what you're doing. You're a parrot. And you're just going, Polly wants a cracker. Polly wants a cracker. Oh, I got a cracker, so I must have caused it to happen. This is why all of the higher metaphysics, all the higher mystical arts will tell you that siddhi in Sanskrit, which means like superpowers, aren't the point, and those are the foothills of the true power. Even if you can fly like Superman, read minds, time travel, and all the rest, that isn't even it. That is bullshit by comparison to what you are truly true nature is all about. Think of the most ultimate superpower you can think of. Like you can just, and a whole galaxy appears. That's not even a grain of dust compared to the truth. That is how much more vast what I'm trying to teach you really is. And the great big kick in the ass about it, though, is that when you find this out, A science type, a skeptical type of person would say, if you know that, how come you can't just make the sun go out right now by saying it? That's because they think I am still embedded in my ego. That my ego has any control at all. It doesn't. The reason I can't do that is because my higher self doesn't want to do that. The part of me that I am not currently tuned into doesn't want to do that. Rather than being in adversarial relationship to that, to truly become God is to realize that you're already doing that. And that the adversarial side isn't really powerful. It's important though. You know, there's the saying that you can't walk unless the earth resists you. The whole reason you can walk is because the earth refuses to move. That's why you walk. The whole reason you swim is because the ocean refuses to move. To some degree. It resists you a little bit. And that's an important part of the game. If we don't have resistance, we don't have this Maya world. So I'm going to have an experience of someone saying, Thorne, how come you can't make the sun go out just by snapping your fingers? And I'll be like, yeah, how come I can't do that? But because of that, that's what awakens me to my true nature. When I realize my true nature, then the doors begin to open. And you will begin to have synchronicity so often. And you will have divinatory powers. I'm not kidding you. Ask anybody who's close enough to me, like my wife. I can be pretty uncanny. My wife can be too, actually. But I can be pretty uncanny in my ability to predict things. Why is that? Remember what I keep telling you guys over and over and over again. If you're doing it right, if you're doing magic right, you won't be able to tell the difference between doing it yourself or predicting it. You're going to feel like you are doing it. You're also going to feel like you're predicting it equally. You will be unable to tell the difference. That's when magic is doing magic properly. And I said it like that for a reason, apparently, because I thought I slipped, but then I realized, no, that's perfect. Magic is doing magic perfectly already. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to take off because I don't have Fleshy to keep me going, and I'm getting dry. My wife just rolled over trying to go to sleep. So we got a big day tomorrow. I'm going to go hiking a gorge tomorrow. We were going to see a bunch of properties, but the finances aren't going to work out this trip. So we're just making it a regular vacation trip. But for those of you who are concerned, no, Flesh Priest and I did not dry up. Yes, I'm dry without you. I miss you, brother. But I feel like without you, I get to be more me, which is kind of fun. But that's a lie. I'm me both ways. But I feel like I'm more me in a certain way. I can kind of zone out and channel shit instead of trying to be funny and entertaining. So I'm going to go in a little bit. So I just want to give you guys a final... Let me read some comments. Let me say goodbye with some comments. Let's see. So, thanks, it was awesome, Alpha says. Timothy says, good night, have fun, DH. Raul says, all of the above, I'm not sure what, but I think we know. Let's see, how dry I am, Blade and Cloak says. Astra says, have a good night, thank you. Yeah. I really should do my own version of the Twilight Zone song, I really should. Alpha just says, blah, 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 good night, because the other day on Facebook, I made a half joke post where I said, current mood, blah, 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 fuck you all, blah, blah, blah. And I'm half serious, like, because there's a part of me that every day when I look on Facebook, like, here's the real scoop behind that post. If you guys follow me on Facebook, that was like, what's he saying? Like, is he bad? Is he in a bad mood? I thought Thorne never was suffering. I was in one of those moods where when I opened up Facebook, I just saw a bunch of nonsense of just people being negative. And it was just like, blah, 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 fuck you all, blah, 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 blah. That's how I felt, like, fuck you all. Like, just shut up. You're all fucking, you're all downers today. So I turned on Facebook, I turned it right off. That's what I did. So. Serpent says, dropping bombs, bro. Much respect. Thank you. Marion says, have a nice night. I don't want to go. I want to read comments now. You know what one of my favorite YouTubers is right now for Saturday night? Although I think he's doing a different night this week. If you guys go look up Sleazy P Martini, live from the bunker. He's got my favorite weekly live stream right now. Because it's just, if anybody who hasn't watched it, if you got a good sense of humor, and if you're here, you probably do, check out his stream. It's actually really good. It's really funny. And it's very political. So if you don't like those politics, maybe you won't like it. But it's thank you, whoever that was. I don't know if you heard that, but apparently we got a ka-ching. What did we get, sweetie? Somebody was really sweet just now. Who was that? What was it? Oh, thank you, whoever that was. Somebody just bought a mirror. Whoever that was, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Tell you what, give me on that Etsy, if you're in this stream right now, whoever bought that mirror, on Etsy, message the store and be like, that was me, and say who you were, and we'll give you a special thank you somehow in the package. I'm going to say, because you did it right live on air. You're like one of those people, because that's probably why you did it. So if you were here on the stream, and I'll give you in the thank you letter, I'll give you a little extra something. We'll see. So message us on Etsy so you know who you are, and just to confirm you were here for the stream if you were. If not, it was just going to be like a little handwritten thank you, but that's about it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that, whoever that was. And if it wasn't any one of you, thank you, whoever you were anyway. Until next time, we're going to be tuning out. Next week should be back to normal. I already got a message from Flesh Priest. He's already apologized for cheating on me with that entire football team. And he's forgiven me for cheating on him with the entire ice skating team. My wife's mad now, though. But, whatever. She'll take me back, I'm sure. So, Flesh...
I got the hockey team. So.
You got the hockey team? Yeah, right. But, so... Fleshy will be back next week, I believe, unless something happens, you might get sick or something. But we'll be back to our regular show next week. Thank you, guys. I'm live from the Hilton Hotel in, I guess I don't mind telling you, I'm over here in Corning, so if any of you guys are in the neighborhood, maybe we can hang out and get drinks tomorrow night or something like that. But I'm over here in Corning, New York, and I'm going to be here until tomorrow sometime or Saturday. So if you want to get in touch, if you know how to get in touch with me, hey, maybe we can meet up and get a drink or something. So we're here for one more day, so live from the hotel in Corning. That's where we are, I guess that's it. So anybody else who hasn't purchased something from me yet, if you want to support my work and outreach here, the free way is, of course, to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. Comments are awesome because they help with the algorithm. So when this video is done posting, just come back in like 5 minutes. Say thank you. Say I love your work. Say you suck, Thorne. Anything you want. Make a comment, leave a like, leave a comment, share the video. That does a lot to get my channel promoted, and that always helps. If you want to go further, you can go into the links in the description of this video. It's a Linktree link. Linktree is really cool because if you click that, it explodes and shows you all the links to all my stuff. And that's the best ways you can support me financially. I've got 3 books that are published on Amazon. I've got my Patreon account where you can actually sign up for a weekly class. Mobius is still here. He's in that class. There's quite a few people who are in that class who are probably here. I think some of you guys were before. I'll have to read through it. But that's a class that's $20 a month for pretty much 4 classes a month. If there's a holiday, I'll cancel it, or if I'm sick. But pretty much I think we've canceled 3 out of the last, 4 or 5 months, 3 months, something like that. So we're pretty good. We have a really good schedule every Monday night. And if you can't make it, for whatever reason, they're recorded and shared with private videos. So you guys can read it and you can watch them later. And they're at least an hour long. They're usually up to 2. So they're basically a 1 to 2 hour lecture. And they're not like this where they're kind of random. We do rituals, we do meditations, we do all kinds of stuff. There's some things I can't do unless we're in person maybe. So it's been mostly stuff we can do just by talking. But it's been really good so far. And I've been enjoying it. I think, Mobius says he loves it. I know he does. He's there like clockwork. He's almost never not there. And Mobius is a smart cookie. He gets a lot of good stuff. So I'm glad to see him. It's a good class. $20 a month. Can't go wrong. If you don't like it, it's just a month. You can cancel anytime. Then, of course, I offer rituals. Oh, That's something I wanted to bring up. I completely forgot. Sometime in the next 30 days, I'm going to be releasing 2 new rituals I'm going to be doing that are like pre-written, pre-designed rituals. The first is going to be just kind of like a child blessing. I'll let you pick a spirit that you want me to approach, especially. I'll tell you if it's one I can or one I can't. There might be some I can't. But anyone that I have relation with, if I can contact them, if you want me to do a blessing for your child, I will probably offer this more affordably than the other ones. I'll probably make it an affordable rituals, like one of the $50 rituals. If you have a child or a child that you're expecting, anything like that, I can attempt to do that for you with that. The next one that's going to be the big one that I think some people are going to really find interesting is where, let's say you're someone who, for whatever reason, has chosen to maybe not procreate. So you've all heard about people doing rituals for stuff that maybe I shouldn't even bring up that are quite objectionable to some people, but things like the opposite of having a kid. I believe that some people want to potentially sacrifice their ability, not ability, but intention to have children, want to make that an energetic sacrifice like I'm doing. And to do that in a ritualized way to seek the blessing of a god or other being. So let's say you are intending not to have a child. Let's say you want to make a spiritual commitment for that. Let's say you want to approach a spirit again, one that I have connection with. And you want to say, listen, spirit, we'll say King Paimon. King Paimon, I am never going to have a child. Astra, it doesn't prevent you from having a child. This is your offering. You are offering your seed, literally, forever, for a blessing. And heaven, hell, and everything in between help you if you fuck this up. If you say, I am dedicating my seed to you, King Paimon, and then you go have a baby, I am not responsible. Maybe we could work into there a caveat where if I do have a baby, I dedicate it to you somehow. But I don't like that because that's putting an innocent, like, making a choice for an innocent, right? I am not going to be okay with that, personally. So I'm not going to let you offer your firstborn like that. That's not what I'll do. But I will say, if you want to say, hey, I've decided to be sterile, but it's got to be your decision, by the way. If you're someone who simply can't, that's not much of a sacrifice, is it? I don't mean to say that in any way to insult you for what you're going through, because I'm sure it sucks. But if you're somebody who just can't, that's not really something you're offering. It's something that you're already stuck with, right? So please don't take it the wrong way. I don't mean it in any kind of negative way. But if you're someone who can have a child and you want to offer that seed for something serious as a reward, now that doesn't mean that you will get that thing, but it would be something you could trade. And I would at least be the facilitator, the broker, if you will, in a ritualistic fashion. And then it's between you and the spirit to see if it happens. So willing to do that. And it would probably be, I have to really confirm what I want to do with it, because I have 3 different rituals in mind, but I may have to work with the spirit to really get the right one that's going to be beautiful and generic for everybody. So it's not something I have to meditate on every time. I want to get it down to I pick a spirit, appeal to them with an offering, and how to actually facilitate that. Because what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to create a wax egg or a wax figurine of a child, consecrate it in ritual heavily, then mail that to you. And then you will have to do something, perhaps, or bleed on it. You're going to have to give it your essence. At least blood, probably something else. And then burn the candle. So it's been charged, it's been consecrated, and you have placed your own essence into it. Your seed, basically. Your life essence as the offering. And then that is what seals the deal. And it is burned down. When it is fully burned down, make sure it's fully burned down. I'll show you how to do that. fully burn it down so there's nothing left. And when it's completely gone, then that's your offering, and that is your pact. And if you break it, shit's on you. And I'm not responsible either way. I'm just a facilitator. You do the rest. So if that's what you guys are interested in, please stay tuned. I'll probably be announcing that soon once I get it really hammered out exactly how I want to do it, because I haven't fully done it for myself. I just know that I want to do it. So once I get this hammered out, I will offer it. I might even do a demonstration of, well, not the part, but the ritual itself. I'll probably do a short version like I did with some of the other ones I've done. I'll do a short edition of that so you guys can see how it's done. If you want to make your own, that's fine. If you're competent and want to do it. But if you want to hire me for that service, maybe you're not good at magic, that's something I want to do. In the meantime, if you want to actually get on the list for that early, go to my email, which should be in the link tree again. Go to my email and send me an email with the subject, seed ritual, and then put something in the text so I know that that's what you're interested in. And I'll get back. I'll keep you on the list, and I'll let you know when I'm ready to do it. It will probably be sometime in August. I'm going to offer it formally. So maybe you want to be a test case and want to do it for like a high discount. That'd be cool. I'd be fine with that. Maybe I'll take 1 or 2 people who want a test case version of it. So make sure that you're mature and adult. That I won't do it for anybody who's not over 18, by the way. So, yeah. Yeah, the rest of the demonstration will be on Thorne Hub. Nice, Dark Lord Smarter. Nice. Yeah, the part where you the part where you finish the ritual yourself, I will put on Thorne Hub. I might need to use the wide lens, not because I'm big or anything, just because I'm probably gonna be too close to, anyway. But yeah, so thanks guys, that's it. So anyway guys, love you all. Thank you for watching. Mind the shadows, and until next time, tell your friends, warn your enemies, and what was that other thing? Never take yourself more seriously. Never take yourself more seriously than your enemies do. All right, now this is where I'm gonna fuck this up. How do I make this stop on my phone? Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Bye.